I was already late when it happened. The station clock showed a time I didn't want to see, the kind that makes your chest tighten and your steps turn careless. The platform was crowded, voices blending into one long, restless sound. Announcements echoed overhead, distorted and urgent, reminding everyone that nothing waits, not trains, not schedules, not mistakes. I checked my phone while running, fingers slick with sweat. That was when it slipped. The phone hit the ground with a dull crack and skidded under a bench near the edge of the platform. I stopped so abruptly that someone bumped into me from behind and cursed. I dropped to my knees without thinking, heart pounding harder than before, and reached under the bench. Before my fingers touched it, another hand appeared. Thin, wrinkled, slower than mine, but certain. An old woman pulled the phone toward herself and stood up. She looked out of place in a way I couldn't explain at first. Not homeless, not lost, just detached. Her clothes were layered oddly for the season, fabrics worn thin but carefully arranged. Her hair was gray and braided, the braid falling over one shoulder like it had been done that morning, deliberately. She held my phone out to me. "Careful," she said. Her voice was low, calm, almost gentle. "You nearly lost this." "Thank you," I said quickly, already reaching for it, my mind racing back to the train I was about to miss. She didn't let go. Her grip tightened just enough for me to notice. "Don't board the train," she said. I froze. "I'm sorry?" I laughed awkwardly, assuming I'd misheard her over the noise. "Go home," she continued, eyes fixed on my face. "And hide in the closet." The words felt wrong. Not loud, not dramatic. Wrong in the way something feels when it doesn't belong in the moment it's spoken. "I don't have time for this," I said, trying to pull my phone back. She leaned closer. I smelled something faint and unfamiliar, like old paper and metal. "Don't ask why," she said. "You'll understand later." The announcement for my train boomed overhead. "Now boarding." I yanked the phone from her hand. "I'm late," I snapped, already stepping back. "Please don't do this." She didn't follow me. She didn't shout. She just watched. As I turned to run, I glanced back once. She was still standing there, perfectly still, eyes locked on me, as if she were counting something only she could see. I waved her off, half in irritation, half to convince myself it had meant nothing. Then I stopped, not because of her, because my feet wouldn't move. I stood at the edge of the platform as people rushed past me toward the open doors. The train hissed softly, impatient. Everything logical in my head screamed to get on. But the image of her face stayed with me. Not fear, certainty. I stepped back. The doors closed moments later. The train pulled away, wind rushing past my legs, and with it went the version of the day I'd planned. I felt stupid immediately. I stood there long after the platform emptied, heart still racing, telling myself I'd just let stress get to me. That strangers say strange things. That nothing had happened. I went home. My apartment was quiet in the way it always was in the afternoon. Sunlight slanted through the blinds. Familiar. Safe. I dropped my bag on the chair and stood there for a moment, listening. Nothing. I laughed under my breath. "Hide in the closet," I muttered, shaking my head. I didn't hide. Not at first. I made coffee. I checked my phone. I scrolled through messages I didn't answer. The normalcy of it all settled my nerves. An hour passed. Then two. The sun shifted. The apartment grew dimmer. I started to feel uneasy, and I couldn't explain why. Not panic. Just a subtle awareness, like the air itself was waiting. I thought of the woman again. Go home. Hide in the closet. I walked down the hallway slowly, feeling ridiculous. The closet door was closed, exactly where it always was. I stared at it for a long moment. "This is insane," I whispered. I opened it anyway. It smelled like fabric and dust. Coats brushed against my arms as I stepped inside. I pulled the door closed behind me, leaving a thin crack of light through the slats. I crouched there, heart thudding, every logical part of my brain screaming that I had finally lost it. I almost opened the door. Then I heard it, a sound from the other room. Not loud, not sudden, just something that didn't belong. At first, I told myself it was the building settling. Old pipes made noises, neighbors walked heavy, elevators groaned. Every apartment had its soundtrack, and fear loved to borrow familiar sounds and rename them. This wasn't familiar. It was deliberate, a slow drag across the floor, soft, patient, followed by a pause long enough to make me hold my breath without realizing it. My heart beat so loudly I was sure it would give me away, even though I had no idea who, or what, I was hiding from. I pressed my palm to my mouth and leaned into the coat's fabric, brushing my cheek. The sound came again, closer. Something moved through my living room with the unhurried confidence of a presence that didn't need to rush. No footsteps, no weight, just the suggestion of motion, like air being rearranged. I stared through the narrow slit of light in the closet door. Nothing moved, and that was worse. My phone vibrated in my hand, and I nearly screamed. A notification lit the screen, harsh and bright in the darkness. Unknown number. You did the right thing. My fingers went numb. I didn't reply. The vibration came again. Stay where you are. I swallowed hard and typed with shaking thumbs. Who is this? The response came immediately. Someone who was on that train. The room seemed to tilt. I thought of the platform. The crowd. The doors closing. The wind as the train pulled away. I imagined faces I'd seen without noticing. People whose lives had continued in a direction mine hadn't. Another message appeared. It doesn't like witnesses. A soft sound interrupted my focus. Breathing. Not mine. It came from the other side of the closet door. I froze so completely that my legs began to ache. The breathing was shallow, irregular, as if whoever, or whatever, was doing it wasn't used to lungs. The slit of light narrowed. A shadow passed across it, slow and curious. I squeezed my eyes shut. Go away, I whispered without sound. The breathing stopped. Silence pressed in, thick enough to feel. Then the door handle turned. Not fully, just enough to test it. The coats around me swayed as if brushed by a hand that wasn't there. My phone vibrated again. Do not open the door. As if I needed the reminder. The handle released. The shadow slid away. The breathing resumed, but farther now, drifting back into the apartment, leaving behind the sense that something had decided I wasn't worth the effort. I stayed in the closet long after the sound disappeared. Minutes stretched into something shapeless. My legs cramped. My throat burned with the need to swallow. Still, I didn't move. Eventually, my phone buzzed once more. It's gone. I waited. For now, the message added. I didn't step out immediately. When I finally opened the door, the apartment looked exactly as I'd left it. Couch cushions undisturbed, coffee cup cold on the counter. No signs of forced entry. Except for the front door. It was open, just a few inches. I closed it slowly, listening for any protest from the hinges. Nothing. My hands shook as I locked it, then checked it again. I moved through the apartment with the caution of someone navigating a place that had betrayed them once already. There were no footprints, no smells, no explanation, only a lingering awareness that the air had been disturbed and set back into place. I sat on the couch and stared at my phone. Who are you? I typed. The reply took longer this time. Someone who listened too late. I felt a cold settle in my chest. What happened on the train? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. They'll tell you it was an accident. My stomach twisted. What kind of accident? Another pause. The kind that leaves no survivors. I closed my eyes. Why me? I asked. Why did she warn me? The response came slowly, as if each word cost something. Because it has patterns. Because you were paying attention. Because sometimes it chooses differently, and sometimes it doesn't. I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of that. Who was she? I typed. The woman at the station. The answer sent a chill through me. She's been standing on platforms longer than you've been alive. Night fell without ceremony. I didn't turn on the lights. I sat there, phone in hand, replaying the afternoon in my mind. The certainty in her eyes. The way she'd held my phone just a second too long. The way she'd watched me as if she were memorizing my face. A news alert broke the silence. Breaking. Train derailment outside city limits. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. My phone buzzed again. You understand now. Tears blurred my vision. Is it coming back? I typed. It always does, came the reply. But not tonight. I hugged my knees to my chest and waited for the shaking to stop. Somewhere far away, sirens wailed. I stayed exactly where I was until the sky outside my window began to lighten. In the early hours of the morning, another message arrived. If you ever see her again, it read, listen. I stared at the words until they faded into the background noise of a city waking up. When I finally stood, my body felt older, heavier, as if I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I didn't leave the apartment that day. I didn't board any trains the next day either. I began to notice things instead. Who stood still on platforms while everyone else moved? Who watched doors instead of schedules? Who paid attention to people dropping things? And sometimes, very rarely, I caught sight of a familiar braid in a crowd. Watching, waiting. I didn't sleep after that. Morning came and went in fragments, light shifting on the walls, distant traffic, the low murmur of neighbors starting their day. I stayed still, replaying every sound from the night before, every pause that had felt too intentional to be random. When I finally stood, my legs trembled like I'd been holding myself upright for hours. The news played softly on my phone while I made tea I didn't drink. Investigation ongoing. Mechanical failure suspected. They showed a blurred image of twisted metal. Officials spoke carefully. Commentators filled the gaps with guesses. No names, no faces, no survivors. I turned the volume down. My phone buzzed. "You're awake," the unknown number texted. "You're still here," I replied. A pause. "So are you." I stared at the screen. "Why are you helping me?" The reply came slower this time, deliberate. "Because once it notices you, you either learn the rules, or you become part of the pattern." My chest tightened. What pattern? Movement, the message read. Crowds, transitions, places where people stop paying attention because they think they're safe. I thought of stations, platforms, doors closing. What is it? I typed. The dots blinked, stopped, blinked again. Something that travels when it's invited. I swallowed. Invited how? By rushing, by distraction, by assuming nothing will happen today. I set the phone down, hands shaking. That afternoon, I left the apartment for the first time since the station. I didn't go far. The city felt sharper, louder. I noticed details I'd ignored my entire life. The way people drifted without looking. The way signs were followed automatically. The way everyone trusted the next step would be there. At the corner, I stopped. A young man sprinted past me, late, phone pressed to his ear. He nearly dropped it. An old reflex kicked in. I reached out to catch it. A hand touched my wrist. Light, firm. I turned. She stood beside me, just as she had at the station. Same braid, same calm eyes. "Not that one," she said quietly. The young man kept running, unaware. I pulled my hand back, heart pounding. "You saved me." She shook her head. "You saved yourself. I just slowed you down." I stared at her. What was in my apartment? She looked past me, down the street. A thing that follows momentum. It doesn't hunt. It accepts. Accepts what? Offers, she replied. People offer themselves every day. I thought of the train. The rush. My carelessness. Why warn anyone at all? I asked. Why not let it happen? She met my eyes. Because not everyone deserves to be taken by accident. Before I could ask anything else, she stepped back into the flow of pedestrians and disappeared. Just like that. Weeks passed. I learned to live differently. I left early. I stopped rushing. I watched doors before walking through them. I noticed who lingered and who sprinted, who looked down and who looked around. The messages from the unknown number stopped. I didn't ask why. One evening, months later, I stood at a different station, waiting, not for a train, but for someone. A woman dropped her phone near the platform edge. She panicked. I picked it up and handed it back. Careful, I said. She smiled, embarrassed, and thanked me. I hesitated. Don't board the next train, I added quietly. She laughed nervously. Excuse me? Just take the later one, I said. You'll understand eventually. She studied my face. Something in my expression must have reached her. She nodded. I stepped away. From across the platform, I felt it, a shift in the air, a subtle pressure, like a tension being withdrawn. The train arrived. People boarded. The woman stayed back. The doors closed. As the train pulled away, I caught a glimpse of movement at the far end of the platform. A shadow where no shadow should be. Then it was gone. I never saw the old woman again. But sometimes, when I move slowly enough, I feel a presence pass me by, disappointed, patient, searching for someone else who isn't paying attention. I dropped my phone at a station once. A stranger returned it. I skipped a train. And because of that, I learned something most people never do. Some warnings aren't meant to scare you. They're meant to teach you how to stay.